Hi and hello everyone. Welcome to Scholar IAS Current Affairs classes. Hope you're all set. Let's begin the class. The first article is on open market operations. So it's very obvious this is related to your mains GS3 paper and as well as prelims. So in open market operations we know that the RBI purchases and sells government securities. And this is done to basically streamline the money supply in the market as well as the interest rates in the banks. Okay, so these are the two broad objectives of doing OMOs. And in case of excess liquidity in the market, RBI basically issues the securities. So this is what happens if there is more liquidity in the market, and if RBI wants to reduce that liquidity, it would be issuing the security so that it can suck all the money in. And if there is less liquidity in the economy in the market, then RBI would be buying these securities from the public so that it can inject more funds. So this is the basic about OMOs, and once we understand OMOs, this is just one part of a monetary tool that is used by RBI. There are other aspects to that as well. The other tools that are used by RBI are reserve ratio, that includes both CRR and SLR, that is cash reserve ratio and statutory liquidity ratio. And next to that is policy rates. This includes liquidity adjustment facilities like repo rate, reverse repo rate, bank rate, and even marginal standing facility. Okay, this is about the tools that are used by instruments that are used by RBI. Students, you have to remember the points that we saw in the previous slide are very important for your prelims, and as well as the points that we are going to look at here are even important for prelims, because these are conceptual questions around this open market operations. These are money market instruments, and a question can be asked on these lines. So now let's try to understand how OMOs are in particular are going to impact the money supply. So there is an inverse relationship between the bond price and the interest rate. Okay, this is how it operates. So when RBI purchases bonds via OMO, it basically raises the price of bonds, and in turn it will reduce the interest rates. And open market purchases basically through these mechanisms increase the money supply in the market by making money less valuable, resulting in reduction of rates in the money market. So this is the key to it. Basically, as the money supply is increased, the interest rates come down because the demand for money is less, so that the banks would be forced to reduce the interest rates. So this is how it is inversely proportional to the interest rates. Now you would have got an idea about how actually OMOs function. Let's try to understand why it is being done. Why RBI is carrying out OMO operation, that is open market operations. Basically, as I mentioned before, it is to control the supply of money, or let's say to put it in a different way, just the existing liquidity in the economy. So they are trying to basically influence the supply of money. And in case of inflationary situation, RBI what it would do, basically they have to pull the money out of the economy, and that is referred to as contractionary monetary policy. And here through OMO it basically sells the government securities, so that when it sells government securities, it absorbs excess money from the market. And in case of recession, it's vice versa. Basically it would be purchasing the security so that it can inject more money. So this is why RBI carries out OMO operation. And this OMO operation is done via commercial banks who have to be part of the eKuber platform. So this is also a point you have to make a note of. eKuber is a platform through which OMOs are done, and all the stakeholders has to be part of this to actually bid in for this OMOs. So now let's try to understand the RBI sells the government securities to the commercial bank, but who actually issues it? So G6 are definitely issued by RBI, as I mentioned before, but it is not doing it on its own, because it is doing it on behalf of the government for borrowing. That's why we refer to this as government securities, not RBI security. Okay, and these could be these treasury bills or any other money market or short-term debt instruments. Any of these can be part of this G6. And G6 are basically a promissory note, that is, they have guaranteed payment at a zero coupon rate. So when we say zero coupon rate, it's basically nothing but there won't be any interest that would be paid, rather it would be issued at a discounted rate. It's similar to the treasury bills. Okay, this is how this G6 is issued by RBI. Now let's try to understand how the market would actually respond, how the bond market would actually function when these operations are taking place. So this is nothing but how the impact of OMOs having on the market. Okay. So we know the bond price and the interest rates are negative, have a negative relationship, that is inverse relationship, as money supply and treasury bills move in different directions. So we saw that in the previous slide already. And when there is surplus liquidity stands, short term rates tend to go down. So this is how it happens, because short term rates go down so that the immediate liquidity doesn't get affected, or it doesn't increase further. And in other ways, RBI would be tightening the liquidity. That is what is happening. With lowering rates, investors locked in for long term at higher returns stand to gain. So this is how it happens. Because if you are going to put your money, invest your money in short term funds or in short term bonds, it is going to basically go down because the rates are, because the RBI wants to reduce the liquidity. And in case of long term, there would be higher returns so that it becomes attractive for investors to go for long term investments. So in bond market, the rate expectations are going to play a major role. Okay. So the prices would move according to the expected rate that RBI is going to fix on short term and long term bonds. So students, many of these points, most of the points that we have seen now are more prelims oriented, because this conceptual in aspect, and even to some extent it can be used in your mains answer writing, but it has more relevance because it deals more with the application and concept of OMO. So this is all about this article. Let's move on to the next article. So the second article is on nanophonetics. So it's very obvious that this is very related to your prelims for science and tech as well as for mains GS3 paper. Okay. So what is the news is that the crystals, which are normally rigid and stiff structures, they can be actually, it has been found that it can be even bent or sliced using atomic force microscopy. So this is where what the keyword is here. And actually this atomic force microscopy is very useful in the field of nanophonetics. If this step is successful, and if this is incorporated in the nanophonetics, it can go beyond the existing electronics as well as the circuit driven by photons. So the nanophonetics can be taken to the next level, and this can lead to a miniaturization. So basically it aims to develop something around miniaturization. Okay, and it also could lead to a way of all optical technology such as pliable wearable devices operated by light entirely. So it's basically somewhat, if you remember Li-Fi, that is similar to Wi-Fi. So somewhere it is bringing near to that. Nanophonetics is the next stage to that. So for this to happen, the important aspect is bending of light path. So normally if we observe, the lights move along the straight path. That's very that's something known. But for this nanophonetics to actually work, it needs to be bent, and this requires development of certain materials and technology that can actually do that at nanoscale. Okay. So now we saw how important bending of light path is, and when we understood now that the crystals can be sliced and bent the way that we wanted using the atomic force microscopy, it would become, these crystals can be used in building of organic phonetic integrated circuits. So this is where this development, this bending and cutting of crystals becomes important. And in this, the atomic force microscopy would be used to generate the basic elements needed to build a photonic integrated circuit. Such as, let's say, if we want to bend or slice or do anything, transfer a micro-sized wave guiding crystals, also to develop polymer microcavities, and so these would be very useful in photonic integrated circuits. Usually these photonic integrated circuits are made using silicon or silicon based materials, and that too using electron beam lithography. So now with this atomic force microscopy, this can be transformed and made efficient, because we saw how it can be used in slicing the crystals itself. So this is the development of the research, but it's still in that infancy level. There is a lot of improvements that would be required to actually see how much can be gained out of this atomic force microscopy, and which can actually used in bending of light to build photonic circuits. Okay, so this is all about nanophotonics article, students. This is again, as I mentioned before, it is going to be useful for your prelims, science and tech, and I hope that you like the class. Till next class, happy learning. See you. Bye bye.